I used to believe that life settled into stillness once you crossed your mid-40s, that the storms quieted, the heart slowed, and the world finally became predictable. But nothing about that Tuesday night felt predictable. I had just turned 47, and while my days were steady, my nights carried a loneliness I rarely admitted out loud. The house was calm, almost too calm, and sometimes the silence wrapped around me like a reminder of everything I had lost and everything I still longed for that night. Exhaustion pulled at my bones as I lay in bed, listening to the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. I closed my eyes, hoping sleep would come quickly, but a gentle knock at the door made my breath catch. It wasn't loud. It wasn't urgent, but it was enough to send a strange tremor through my chest. "Lucas?" I called softly. The door opened, and there he was, tall, tired-eyed, carrying an energy I had felt around him for months but never dared to name. He stepped inside, his voice strained as he said, "I can't sleep. The apartment feels too heavy tonight." I shifted slightly, making space beside me. We had grown close this past year, two adults navigating the fractures left by old relationships, leaning on each other more than either of us intended. After hesitating, he sat down on the edge of the bed. The warmth of his presence filled the room immediately. He wasn't the shy, uncertain young man I first met months ago. There was something steadier now, something grounded, something quietly intense. When he lay back beside me, his shoulder brushed mine, and a slow, unfamiliar flutter rose in my chest. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His breathing softened, the tension in his body easing as if the simple act of being close to someone calmed him. "Sometimes it's just too much," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Instinctively, I rested a hand on his arm. "I know," I whispered back, though my pulse was far from calm. Something in the air shifted, warmth mixed with uncertainty, comfort laced with an intimacy neither of us had acknowledged before. I told myself it was harmless, that people could care without crossing lines. But the truth was harder to swallow. By morning, Lucas was still asleep beside me, peaceful in a way I rarely saw. I slipped quietly out of bed, trying to settle the storm inside my chest as I walked to the kitchen. The familiar routine of mixing batter and heating the pan grounded me. I tried to convince myself everything was normal, but when he walked into the kitchen, the look in his eyes wasn't the same. His gaze lingered, too aware, too searching, too vulnerable. When I handed him his plate, our fingers brushed, and he inhaled sharply as if electricity had jumped between us. Breakfast passed in silence, but not an empty silence, one thick with everything we weren't saying. Every stolen glance, every hesitant breath, every unspoken question settled heavily between us. When he left the kitchen, I pressed my palms to the counter, trying to steady myself. It was just closeness, I told myself. Just comfort, nothing more. But the tremor inside me whispered otherwise. That evening, I tried distracting myself with work, emails, anything to push down the lingering tension. But as the night deepened, the house felt too quiet again. I stood near the living room window, watching the dark sky and trying to unknot the confusion tightening in my chest. That was when I sensed him behind me, his footsteps soft, his presence unmistakable. "Elena," he said quietly. I turned to find Lucas standing only a few feet away, his expression unreadable but weighted with something deep. "We need to talk," he added, his voice low, steady, and impossibly sincere. My breath hitched as he came closer. "I know last night was different. I know something shifted." His eyes held mine, warm and unbearably honest. And I can't pretend I don't feel it. My heart pounded, each beat a tangle of fear and longing. "Lucas, we were both tired, vulnerable. It doesn't have to mean anything." But even as I said the words, I felt the lie tremble on my tongue. He stepped closer still, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Then why does it feel like it meant everything?" My breath caught. I didn't have an answer. The room felt smaller, the air tighter, his presence overwhelming in a way I wasn't prepared for. I turned away, needing distance, needing air. I don't know what this is, I whispered. I don't know if I'm ready to understand it. But when I felt him move behind me, stopping just a breath away, the truth was undeniable. Something between us had crossed the line. Then we could never go back to pretending. And that was the moment. I realized the night wasn't done with us yet. For a long moment, the room felt suspended in silence, like the air itself was trying to decide what would happen next. Lucas stood behind me, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off his body. I told myself to breathe, to think clearly, to step away before the moment pulled us somewhere neither of us was prepared for. But the truth was, I didn't want to move. Not yet. Not when the quiet between us felt so charged, so full of everything we had avoided for months. "Elena," he murmured, his voice a rough whisper. "You don't have to run from me." His words sent a shiver through me, and I turned slowly, meeting his eyes. There was no confusion in them anymore, only openness, vulnerability, and a kind of longing that made my heart ache. I swallowed hard. "Lucas, we're crossing into something complicated." He nodded gently, as if he had already thought through every argument I might raise. "I know, but I'm not afraid of complicated. I'm afraid of pretending I don't care." His honesty hit me like a tide, unsettling and warm all at once. I stepped back, needing a moment to steady myself. The dim lamplight cast soft shadows across the living room, making everything feel intimate in a way that felt dangerous. "I'm older," I said softly. "I've lived a life you haven't. I carry things you don't even know about." His expression softened. "Then let me learn," he whispered. "Let me meet you where you are." The sincerity in his voice unraveled something inside me, something I had tightly held together for years. Loneliness can become a quiet ache you learn to ignore, but his presence made it impossible to ignore anymore. I finally sat down, and he lowered himself beside me, leaving just enough space that our knees brushed. Even that small touch sent a rush of warmth through me. "Lucas, we have to be careful," I said, though my voice lacked the firmness I intended. He looked down for a moment, then lifted his gaze again, steady and certain. "I don't want to push you," he said, "but I want to be honest. Being near you feels right." His voice cracked slightly, revealing the vulnerability he tried so hard to hide. "And I don't want to walk away from something that could matter." The confession settled between us, soft and trembling. I let the truth wash over me, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel afraid of being seen. Really seen. I exhaled slowly. "It's not that I don't feel something," I admitted. The moment the words left my lips, the temperature of the room seemed to shift. His eyes widened, not in shock, but in quiet recognition. "I knew," he whispered. "I could feel it." My heart raced and I looked away, afraid of what my face might reveal. But feeling something doesn't make it simple. His hand brushed mine, tentative but gently determined. "Maybe it doesn't have to be simple," he said. "Maybe it just has to be honest." I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of his touch settle through me. When I opened them, he was still watching me with that steady, uncheckable sincerity that left me breathless. Without thinking, I leaned just slightly closer, and he mirrored the motion, slow, careful, as if giving me every chance to pull away. Our foreheads nearly touched, and his whisper brushed my lips. "You can tell me to stop?" But I couldn't. The fragile tension snapped, and our lips met slow, tender, searching. Nothing rushed, nothing reckless. Just two adults holding on to a moment neither wanted to escape. His hand rose to my cheek, warm and grounding, and for the first time in years, I felt alive, truly alive. The kiss deepened gently, still careful, as if he was asking for permission with every breath. When we finally pulled apart, my heart felt unsteady but open, like a door I hadn't realized was locked. I stood up abruptly, overwhelmed by the intensity of everything unfolding. Lucas rose too, worry flickering across his face. "Elena," he began, but I raised a trembling hand. "I just need a moment," I whispered. I stepped toward the hallway, trying to steady my breath, trying to understand the storm inside me. But before I reached the doorframe, I felt his presence behind me again, not pressing, not demanding, just there. "I'm not asking you to decide everything tonight," he said softly. "I'm just asking you not to walk away from what we both felt." His voice cracked, and when I turned, I saw the truth in his eyes, patience, affection, and something deeper I wasn't ready to name. I exhaled shakily, the weight of the moment settling into my chest. "This changes everything," I said quietly. He nodded, "Yes, but maybe not in a bad way." And just like that, the ground beneath us shifted, not with danger, but with possibility terrifying and beautiful all at once. I didn't answer. Not yet. The night held too many questions, too many emotions curling around us like smoke. But one thing was clear. The lines between us had blurred, and the path ahead was no longer simple, and neither of us had any idea what tomorrow would bring.